If ever a change is gonna come, starts with me. When all of my ducks are in a row, it allows me to see. I know whatever I need is there, just waiting for me to step in and start right now, creating whatever I see. A time for transformation, to heal my private nation, whatever I can be. All I need to do is see. It's time, transformation. Whenever I feel I need a change, I open my heart to wonders that Spirit brings upon me. I'm ready to start. I know whatever I need is there, just waiting for me to step in and start right now, creating whatever I see. It's time for transformation, to heal my private nation, whatever I can be. All I need to do is see. It's time for transformation, to heal a thirsty nation, whatever we can be. All we need to do is see. It's time for transformation. Go wherever you're led to go. Do whatever you're led to do. Have faith. You become the real you, and say whatever you're led to say. Be whomever you're led to be. Have faith. You become the real you. It's time for transformation, to heal your private nation, whatever you can be. All you need to do is see. It's time for transformation, to heal our thirsty nations, whatever we can be. All we need to do is see. It's time for transformation. It's time for transformation. It's time for transformation. Ooh.
Thank you, Brannis McKenzie. It's time for transformation. Thank you so much, Tammy Hall. Thank you. Wasn't that beautiful? Good morning, heart and soul. Wasn't that is a song with a message for such a time as this. It's a song that Brannis wrote several years ago. And we have asked her repeatedly at Heart and Soul to sing it ever so often. It's just like our booster shot, if you will. It gives us an opportunity to realign ourselves with what really matters, what is ours to be, and thus discern what is ours to do. So I want to begin, the serial preacher that I am, kind of where I left off. Let's tag back to Benjamin Franklin just to remind us of where we are starting from. So we know that he said justice will not be served until those who are unaffected, those who perceive themselves, let me tweak it a little bit, those who perceive themselves to be unaffected, until they get that they too are affected and are as outraged as those who are more directly affected. Is this making sense now that I kind of work on it a little bit to let you know that there really are none who are unaffected? But there's the perception that they're not doing that to me and mine. But they really are, because there's only one of us here. So look here, I'm still playing with Matthew 9, working out this idea, this concept of blindness, and having it not have to do with the absence of a functioning ocular system, but instead having everything to do with our unwillingness to see exactly what time it is on the planet and what that requires of each and every one of us. Remember what Benjamin Franklin said now, yes? That none of us, well, he said that it's not until those who are unaffected, but we can raise the bar and realize that we are all affected. We're just affected in different ways. And none of it, in the final analysis, is acceptable. I also want to, so we've been talking about this notion of blindness, and we see that in this scripture that the master teacher Yeshua, that the world ultimately came to call Jesus, that what happened here is that it said they came near him and he simply asked is, do you believe that I can do this? Do you believe that this is possible? And then he touched their eyes. I'm just going to make up, because I can this morning, that possibly he touched their eyes in the way that I hope to touch your heart. In the same way that on Sunday mornings in masjid, or on Fridays in masjids and in temples and such, and on Sunday mornings in various centers and churches, that the intention is that a heart would be sufficiently touched that it might open. Not unlike the final line of that scripture that says, and their eyes were opened. My prayer is that our hearts are open through all of this process, everything in the news, that has captured our attention, that our hearts are open. See, my concern is this, that even as we emerge in our awareness out of a self-imposed blindness, that we sometimes manage to be super intent on our focus, which means focus by its very nature and definition means you're not looking at the other stuff. So for each of us, as we are focused on that, whatever it is that has our attention, I'm wanting us to know that means we're missing a bunch of stuff. If you're focused on the harm that has come, you're missing the blessing. If you're only focusing on the blessing, you are also missing the pain and the suffering. I've come today to say we're going to have to open our eyes. It's time for us to transform. What did the lyrics say? I need to see. When my ducks are in a row, it allows me to see. This process is a part of us getting our ducks all in a row so that we can see, we can begin to see what we've been missing, the part we haven't looked at, the part we've not been paying attention to. All of that. Today I'm feeling like I'm going to be super dependent on the notes because there's a lot I want to say and I want to make sure I get through. Well, I'm going to be here next week. Maybe I don't have to be so intent on the note factor here, but there's a message that I want to we already know that what we focus on increases in our awareness. I don't want you to believe you work in magic, that you just focusing on it makes it appear everywhere. It appears to you in your consciousness. You see more of that. You know that. You start shopping for a white car, you see white cars everywhere. The white cars didn't suddenly appear. You just start paying attention to them. And so there's something that's in the environment right now that's trying to get our attention, trying to get us to pay attention, to focus on a part that we've not been willing to pay attention to. Let me acknowledge my white allies, because y'all start calling and connecting and creating book read groups and start going through that list of 75 things. I appreciate you. You start reposting it to each other. I'm counting on y'all to work together for this transformation, because there's something that we're all beginning to see, and we're going to see it in different ways. We're going to realize that something different is required of all of us. But I need you to know, I'm just for the quick refresher, it's not for us. People of color are not to do your heavy lifting. This is instead where we're calling on you because we love you and because we know you love us, to do the work that is yours to do, to get what? Your ducks all lined up in a row so you can see more clearly what time it is and what's required of each and every one of us. I want you to know I'm grateful because I already see the shift, but this is not a season. This is not just something to do while we're sheltered in place. This is a life change. I'm counting on this becoming a new normal, where we count on each other to do that part that each of us can best do. I hope that that's clear, because look at here. Some of us have kind of been tripped out of late because there are those allies with whom we have perceived a shared reality. And it's during these times when we realize, sometimes it's by a Facebook post, sometimes it's by a comment that is overheard, but we realize that maybe it's a perceived unity, that maybe it's a false unity, that because we both, now I'm going to pick something better than what came to mind, because we both have read some of the same books and discerned some of the same, have the same kind of summation of it, we decided that we were going to vote the same way. Come on now, y'all understand what I'm talking about, that moment in the group when you realize that y'all don't have that in common. But we set it up that our unity means sameness, and it doesn't. I'm wanting us to know that there is room at the table for everybody, but we're going to have to come correct. But I'm off topic now. I just wanted to touch in with y'all because y'all are doing your work. So this is me kind of stepping back out of my white ally circle, because I'm not bossing y'all around. Other than they get together and do the thing. But beyond that, I want to highlight that. And in fact, I'm going to make this in a viewing assignment. For those of you with Netflix, get thee quickly to Patriot Act, because there's a little extra 12-minute piece that Hassan has offered us. And I just want to, I'm going to have to highlight it for you, because he poses this question that often folks have of us. And the question is, so why can't they just follow the laws? Why can't they? And, you know, another version of that is, why can't they act better? Why can't they pull up their pants? You know, there are all these variations on the theme. They all lead to, if you acted better, people would treat you better. That's false reasoning. There is no evidence. Dr. Martin Luther King, come on, tell them that if you act better, they'll treat you better. No, they'll still kill you. They'll still put their foot on your neck, either literally or metaphorically. So it's a false assumption that if you just act right, if you act like these other people, then you'd be all right. So here's what I love, because he says, and he says he's talking to his Asian family and all of its broadness. He literally calls them out from every country, every nation. He talks about, and he says this. He says that a huge part of our response, of their collective response, is, why don't they just act better? Why don't they just follow the laws? And he says to them on camera, after calling them out, he says, but imagine if you lived in a country, and I'm going to add in, you do, where the color of your skin gets you killed. And then he offers this list to make sure they understand. You get killed for driving, jogging, sleeping, yelling, parking, babysitting, sitting in a van, selling CDs, selling cigarettes, opening the door, walking at night, wearing a hoodie at night, holding a toy gun, lying on the ground, being homeless, being in a dark stairwell, holding a cell phone, having a broken tail light, exercising horses, having a bottle of pills, shopping at Walmart, holding a BB gun at Walmart, holding a phone in your own backyard, eating ice cream in your own house, and shopping. He's saying to his folks, even you would say, that's a lawless country. If that's what happens, and I need you to say that everything he said is not what happens, it's what has happened. And he's right. It's a lawless country. So I need you to hear that I've just made a viewing assignment. I didn't know that I'd be referring y'all to Netflix. Y'all help each. Oh, no, I'm not. It's on YouTube as well. It's on YouTube as well. And it says, I think, well, it's Patriot Act, and he's talking about George Floyd. So something about that is in the title of it. My folks will find it for me, and I'll let you know at the end to tell you very specifically, because right now I want to get to this idea of the crack that's in our foundation. You see, this notion of a lawless country allows us to see, no point in just getting outraged about that. We might choose to see it as a crack in our foundation. Now, whether the crack is horizontal or whether it's vertical, you still need to do something. Once you realize that the foundation is cracked, and it is, you must do something. There's not a one of us who believes that that's okay. We just gonna live with the cracked foundation. We know we need a structural engineer. There's a point at which, so I've come today to say y'all are structural engineers, and my work is to call that out of you, so to help you to see that you really do know what to do, and that the possibilities, if you've ever seen, you know, I'm a HGTV fan, and so I'm forever seeing that moment when they call in the structural engineer, and largely I see him kind of stand around. And so there's something about the observation skills of us in co-humanity that would support us in discerning what needs to happen here to heal this structural fissure, this crack in our foundation. First of all, we need to see it. Come on, Brannis, remind us. We need to see it, and then we can come to it. So now I want to share with you what I think is a brilliant work from Malcolm Gladwell in his book, David and Goliath. He offers us, well, let me just share with you. He says, when people in authority want the rest of us to behave, it matters first and foremost how they behave. So this is where he's talking about, where he introduces this principle of legitimacy. He's in describing it, he says that the people expected to obey of this authority have to feel like they have a voice. See, in our structural engineering, we must understand the principle, how things get to be the way they are. We need to understand also, and this is our learning path. So how do we shift it? Because we can see that there are some things in place that are just making the crack in the foundation worse. And we are here to make it better, to ensure that ultimately there is no crack in our foundation. So the first thing that we understand, because as parents and aunties and uncles and teachers and neighbors, we have a sense about this, that when you want to boss people around, that only works so long unless they have a voice. That when they speak up, they will be heard. When they say, no, I didn't do it. That if you don't hear them, then it doesn't make any difference what they do. They may as well have done it. Oh, I hope I'm getting through to the structural engineers among us. Second, he says, the law has to be predictable. There has to be a reasonable expectation that the rules tomorrow are going to be roughly the same as the rules today. I've got to know that it's safe for me to do what you told me to do last time, and that I'll live to tell it tomorrow. Lastly, he says, the authority has to be fair. It cannot treat one group differently than another. We need you structural engineers to get in here and help us fix this. He says that with this notion, this principle of legitimacy, he says that there really is a relationship between how people react, how they behave across the board, according to how they are treated consistently. Now, you don't have to have your degree yet as a structural engineer to see where this is going. You can see that we have been living for hundreds of years in this way of individuals kind of popping off in awareness that it doesn't matter what I do. It does not matter what I do. If I do the right thing, I'm going to get locked up. If I do the wrong thing, I'm going to get locked up. I'm going to get beat and killed, or what? It's all going to happen no matter what. Can you see how we have a huge crack in the foundation? Oh, Lord. He goes on to say, and this is the part here, he says, what happens? He poses this question. What happens to people when they're denied legitimacy? And the legitimacy is what I've just talked about. The ability to see and to control my own destiny in the sense that I can make some choices that can make a difference. So what happens, he says, when you're denied that? When people are denied that ability, he says they get angry, and people in authority forget how powerful and unstoppable that anger is. He says, when not legitimized by authority, anger transforms underdogs into radicals. If you deny people legitimacy, they will one day, by one means or another, come back and defeat you. I don't even have time to give y'all all the examples of where we have seen that in common culture. For me, it's that place in my life that is so transformative. It's where I've just had enough. I used to, because I watched my mother, and I think all children do, because there's that point where you can still get away with it. And then there's that moment that I would describe where my mother would put her foot down and her nostrils, in my case, my mother's nostrils would blare. And when we saw that combination, now, if you didn't see it, you could hear the difference in her walk. See, we've been trained. We all know this. You know how the car pulls in, whether you're in trouble. You already, for whatever reason, if you lived with somebody with alcoholism and other issues, you know what it is. And if you were in a more balanced, stable household, you still had clues. I'm just saying, use the clues. We know you cannot continue we cannot continue to live this way and treat people in the way that we have and act like we just, okay, here we go. That a militaristic police force is the key. Because you just have to arm them more and more. That's all because there's no way to get past it other than to just start again, to line the ducks up in another way. You see, to me, community policing gives us this whole idea that has been there all along. My sense is that I grew up in Berkeley, California, and it could be that I'm naive, but I had a sense that at least where I lived and my family and the families around that I was aware of. Now, hear me now. I'm not going on record trying to rewrite anything for anyone. I just want to give you my sense as a youngster. My entire youth was spent in Berkeley. And my experience my personal experience of the police and the family and so forth, it felt more like what I hear about community policing in terms of the relationship and how they show up. And not just showing up for the emergency tragedies, but to show up for the community in other ways. So I'm out here without a net right now. So do not write me about that, please. We'll just know that I could be in error about that. But what's most important to me is the going forward. How do we build it? Malcolm Gladwell, in this same work, gives us a sense of something that happens in Brownsville, New York. And the police officer is given the assignment of being over the housing authority, and there's several of those buildings, and the idea here is that they want to crack down on juvenile crime. And her idea is she puts together a task force. And here's what she says. She said, I couldn't just put any cop in there. And he says, sounding more like a social worker than a police chief, said, I had to have a cop that loves kids. I had to have a cop that didn't have an ounce of negativity about them and who had the ability to sway kids and push them in the right direction. So see, there's some thought about, and this is coming up in our news lines, in our news feeds is what I want to say. This notion of it's not just anybody who could put a gun in a holster. There's some things you want to weed out, some patterns, some proclivities, some tendencies. You want to have some awareness that what if you really ensured that the people policing in community policing love the community? As structural engineers, you see, our job would be to put things in place that work for the long term, to set it up in a certain way. I'm concerned that we haven't been doing that. I don't know how we set the criteria, but when I look at the outcomes, I see that we have work to do. We want to choose more righteously choose more in alignment with the outcomes that we're praying about and yearning for. Here's the thing about, it's resiliency, but I don't want us to take advantage of it. I want us to be aware of this. And it's the dandelion. Suzanne Collins has written this piece that says, what I need is the dandelion in the spring. The bright yellows that means rebirth instead of destruction. The promise that life can go on, no matter how bad our losses, that it can be good again. So another aspect of what we must do as structural engineers is we must forever hold a sense of that no matter how bad it is, there still is some beautiful life that's a part of it. So we're not coming in to wipe out everything and pretend we can start anew from point zero. No, we're going to honor what's here. And I love this notion of my dear friend Makani and I were talking about the power of the dandelion to just make its way through whatever it is, that it comes right on up through the cracks in the foundation to add something else, so that to remind us that the beauty in life is still present no matter how ugly it is. I need you to get both of these, because it really is as difficult, as awful as what Hassan read. It really is. And simultaneously at the same time, there is life, beautiful life and joy and love that is present at the same time. Tony Puryear said, for Black people, the past was painful, the present is precarious, but the future is free. And that's that dandelion spirit. Yeah, it's been closed over, but there's a way for us to get up through that. There's a way. There was, I don't know if y'all saw it on the news, but there was a man, I don't even remember what town. Somehow Philadelphia comes to mind, but I could be making that up. There was a man that when the protesters were out past curfew and the police were coming after them for whatever would have been the next step, he opened up his home. And I think at DC, I'm told that about 70 people is the number I'm recalling. I just picture him just squeezing them in because it mattered to him. See, to me, he's a structural engineer in this. He's building something else. He's looking at this and saying, this can't happen. We're going to have to build something else. And so somehow in his mind, he had enough space in order to do this. Many of us do. Many of us can do something else. You see, like wildflowers, you must allow yourself to grow in all the places that you thought you never would. That's the call. That's the call of the dandelion. Okay, now I got you. Not only are you a structural engineer, but you a dandelion too. We're just going to combine all the metaphors right here for you. We are structural engineers and we are simultaneously the dandelions that are just finding our way into a crack. We're saying we're still here. That's really the thing. Somehow there are those of us who often we say it to ourselves, we the people they couldn't kill. Because when we look at our history in these United States, there has been a steady effort to kill. And somehow we're still here. Not only are we still here, we're allowing ourselves to grow in the places we thought we never would. Those are the protests we see right now. This is us, all of us together, those who can catch the vision, those who are willing to see. Remember how the song said, once you line your ducks up, when all of my ducks are in a row, it allows me to see. The folks out protesting have lined up their ducks in a way where it says, oh my goodness, I see this. I got to step to this. I have to make a difference. I have to raise my voice. I have to write a sign. I have to show up. I have to risk my very life in the furtherance of life. Of life, as Malcolm Gladwell is talking about, in the principle of legitimacy. In the furtherance of life that is legitimized to live. There's a part of me that is thinking, I shouldn't even be able to say that. Those words strung together make no sense. But unfortunately, there's none, all y'all understand what I'm saying. That we have so shifted. Kind of, we've trained ourselves to believe that some lives are not legitimate. That some lives are expendable. That it doesn't matter. I mean, ask a Brian Stevenson. Bless him. Ask him about all of the folks that sat on death row, many of whom were killed by the states and were innocent. Well, they were innocent of the crime, but they were guilty of being Black in these United States. I wore myself out. I mean, I don't know where to go after that, because that's the truth. Well, here I do know where to go, because there's a greater truth. That's true. And simultaneously, there's a greater truth that is written on every heart and mind, that we can rise. We've seen it. How do I get to say we're the people who wouldn't die? Because we rose, and many thrived through all manner of abuse and laws, and, dare I say, metaphorically, knees on our neck. This is a call to rise, to know that within each and every one of us is the structural engineer, the one who can rearrange it just right where they are. Even as you live into you, I know you're going to have to forgive me, even as you live into your dandelionness, you're owning the ability to work around that, to allow for some other outcomes. Revelo, I need you to just get in here, because Lord knows how long this could go on. It's troubling for me, and it's hard for me to let go, because I'd love to end someplace else. But this is where it ends.
This is where it absolutely begins, Reverend Andrea. Thank you so much for that inspiring reminder that this is our opportunity to be highly conscious structural engineers as we all strive together to create a world that works for everyone. Our dandelion spirit is now blooming through conscious giving. And at Heart and Soul Center of Light, we have many ways in which you can give. You can mail a check to Heart and Soul Center of Light at 1001 42nd Street, Suite 100, Oakland, California, 94609. You can also give online and set up your gift as either a recurring or one-time gift at heartsoulcenter.org/give. My absolute favorite way of giving is texting to give. Just text the word give to 510 500 5849. However you choose to give is absolutely right and perfect. And at Heart and Soul Center of Light, we have a tradition of blessing our good before it is even given, thereby establishing an intention for the good that our gift will do in the world. And so, wherever you may be in the world, I invite you now to either take your gift in hand or just place your hand over your heart, because the greatest gift there can ever be is that gift of life that's beating right under your hand. And let us say our blessing together. I bless this gift as healing energy and send it into the divine flow of all good. Infinite prosperity circulates through me, through my church, and throughout the world, because I know God as source. And so it is.
Hang on to the world as it spins around. Don't you let the spin get you down. Keep on moving fast. Hold on tight and you will last. Keep your self-respect, your heartfelt pride. Lay your dreams right up to the sky. Oh, never mind your fears. Brighter days will soon be here. You take it from me someday. We'll all be free. Come on, Tammy. Keep on walking tall and hold your head up high and lay your dreams right up to the sky. Oh, never mind your fears. Brighter days will soon be here. Take it from me someday. We'll all be free. Yeah. Just wait and see someday. We will all be free. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Take it from me. Someday we'll all be free. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, oh, be free.
I wanted to get right over here so I could say to y'all, Heart and Soulers, take it from me. Someday we'll all be free. However, it's going to require that you get into your structural engineering and your dandelionness to ensure that all of that comes together in a way that we are empowered to claim the freedom that is already here for us. We have to know that. You know, our theme for this year is adventures in faith. I have to pause because I know somebody's chuckling like, really? Absolutely. What is happening is an adventure in faith. It may help somebody to realize, to move it from however we've been holding it, to know that it's an adventure in faith. And while we are on this, in this adventure in faith, we are expecting a miracle. Take it from me. Someday we'll all be free. Come go with me around that. You can find us online. And please do. You can see on your screen now all of the possible ways where you can interact with us. I want you to know that we are doing our best to support you, and we are thinking of other ways in which we can interact during while we are sheltered in place. And one of the ways is the Monday night study for A Year of Miracles. This is Marianne Williamson's book that it's our daily read, our daily devotional, if you will. And so we are writing that, going deep into it. So join us on Monday evening where our practitioners are hosting A Year in Miracles review. So bring your book and get ready for that. I want you to also know that this year we are doing summer school virtually. Now, for some of you we've only done it locally. So if you are elsewhere, you may not know anything about what I'm talking about, but I'm going to just have you trust me. Just stay tuned, trust me, and know that it's an empowering, transformational experience. It's a interactive learning experience, and we're building it anew so that we'll have it available for a virtual experience. So just come hang with us. It's a little late on Wednesday evenings. It begins at 6:30 Pacific time, so it just means you might have to grab a nap in the day. Tammy Hall is live on Thursdays from 6 to 8 Pacific time on Facebook Live. Yes. Be sure you put something in her tip jar. And I think that's not on Facebook, but on your website. It's on your Facebook page. I just wanted to get clear. It's on her Facebook page. Put something in it. Want to remind you that this is the 60th anniversary and fundraiser for Marcus Books. This is the oldest now brick and mortar African American owned bookstore. I wish that I didn't need to string those words together, because that wasn't always the case. Now it is, and we're going to ensure that they are vibrant and that they thrive through this time and beyond. Likewise for Kingston 11, where we get some of the best Jamaican food, takeout Thursday through Saturday. Go to their website so that you can get there, kingston11eats.com, and you can find out what's on the menu and go by and pick up something good. If you're thinking about becoming a member of Heart and Soul, for the first time in the 10.5 years that we have been in existence, that we will have our very first path to membership experience virtually. So this is an opportunity for some folks in other places who know they want to be a part of this community. And let me just tell you, there are ways to do it from afar. One of our members right now is in Jackson, Mississippi, and is a part of the moderation team for our virtual service. And so just know that there are ways for folks to play, even though they are at a distance. And since we'll continue to have a virtual ministry, we'll be building that in unique and beneficial ways. I want to remind you that we're also looking out for the youngsters. The teens meet at 11:30 on Sunday mornings. You'll need to send an email if you have a teen who wants to be a part, because they're protecting the sanctity, if you will, of their group. And so if you're going to join it, they need to know, and everything needs to be set up for the inclusion of additional folks. Likewise, for our littles, they meet on Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. And so again, you'll need to send an email. Neither of those groups are just open for drop-in for anybody. You must go through the facilitators in order to be a part of that. But that is not true for our prayer after service. That's open to absolutely everybody who is willing to dial in and be a part of that. And I encourage you to, these times, call for prayer, which is a way to come into alignment with the truth. That's what it is. We're not beseeching anything. We are working together to what? Get our ducks all in a row so we can see more clearly exactly what's going on and empower us to transform our circumstances. So, group prayer immediately following service and on Wednesday morning. Can you feel how brilliant that is? On a Wednesday morning hump day? Before you start your hump day experience at 7 a.m. Pacific time, you can call in and get prayer and be ready. Come on now. They're thinking of everything. I told you we would be there for you. So I made an assignment of the Patriot Act viewing, Hassan Minhaj. The title of it is "We Cannot Stay Silent About George Floyd." That's the title of it. You can find it on Yahoo. Bless my heart, on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube, and that might be a little easier for everybody rather than trying to go through and find Netflix and all of that, because it's a different platform for different folks. Here's the disclaimer that is important, because he has it when you begin to view this segment, and it's just a 12-minute segment. I'm so grateful that he did this, but hear me now. Please note, he says, that the video has some graphic violence. Please note, in case you or those with whom you may watch it, because oftentimes folks are triggered by these visuals. So I don't want to put anyone in harm's way. In my assigning it, take care of yourself. Never do what I tell you to do, what I ask you to do, if you feel like it's not right for you. Let's be clear about that. I'm not just bossing people around. So I would love for you to watch it, but only if you feel you can. And we may have to watch it and put some notes up, because I don't even remember. I think the part that I'm thinking about is so good, but I want to respect that. So we'll watch it and give you notes, and make sure that when you get the Wednesday recap, that it will be in there if there's any concern about that. All right. So let's just come together in love and with a divine awareness that love is everywhere, always present. Love by so many names: the divine, the law, God. You remember? God is love. And so right now we just center ourselves in love, in the most expansive expression of love. Beginning with an awareness that each and every one of us is love, just as God is love. There's that aspect, that expression of the divine that each of us that is love. The divine vibration and frequency of love. Each and every one of us is breathing the breath of the divine, the living one, the strong one. That means that we're vibrating in the vibration, the frequency of love. Oh, I'm rejoicing. I'm rejoicing in knowing that just that awareness, the awareness of the divine vibration that each of us is transformative. That for the change that each of us desires, that we are being that change. We are allowing ourselves to see, testing for some, that it all begins within, that it's an inside job. Transformation is an inside job. The transformation of the world begins with each and every one of us. Changing our minds about what we see and who we are to be in the world as we see it. It's time indeed for transformation. And we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones to transform. How do I know we're the ones here? And I know the truth of our being. I know that right where we are, the whole perfect and complete nature of the divine is expressing according to our willingness and our divine availability. And so I speak this word that it be a transformative word, that it be a word that just straightens our steps, that aligns our thinking in a way that we move collectively in the direction of our highest and best. That individually and collectively, each of us is being and doing as is required for the divine transformation of our lives and thus the planet. Oh, I'm rejoicing. I'm rejoicing in knowing that this is done and done well in the divine, done well right where we are right now. The goodness that is God is permeating the entirety of this and everything, and thus clearing the way for us to see more clearly what is ours to be and to do in order for us to have a world that works for everyone. Oh, I'm grateful for the support. I'm grateful for the way that we are coming together in community. I'm grateful for our allies, for the way that we are being lifted and we are lifting each other. I'm grateful for the way that we're getting past our stuff and opening ourselves for the highest and best for all concerned. Oh, I am indeed grateful. I give thanks. And it is an absolute perfect gratitude that I simply let go. And that in letting go, I am releasing this word into the perfect activity of law that I know is love and is already working this. And so I just let it be. I've already released it. I've let it go. I'm allowing it to unfold in the perfect way. And I continue to know the power of this word, of all truth, spoken by anyone and everyone. And I simply let it be. Join me in saying amen, ashe, and so it is. And so, Brannis, if I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning. I'd hammer in the evening. I'm going to ask y'all to just work that out for us. All over this world. Come on.
I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out warning, I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. If I had a bell, I'd ring it in the morning, ring it in the evening, all over this land. I'd ring out danger, I'd ring out warning, I'd ring out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. If I had a song, I'd sing it in the morning, I'd sing it in the evening, all over this land. I'd sing out danger, oh, all over this land. Now I've got a hammer and I've got a bell and I've got a song to sing all over this land. It's the hammer of justice and the bell of freedom. Song about love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Justice, love, equality, togetherness. Did I say love, love, and peace all over this land?